Pro-life teaching from Exodus.
My Devar Torah for Parsha Shemot, I entitled, "The Midwives Feared God, and He Made Houses for Them." In this week's Parsha, Egypt's leaders ordered the midwives to abort the Jewish male children, but they refused, claiming that the Jewish babies were being born before they could arrive. These women considered that murdering children would be displeasing to God. Imagine that. Surely, they reasoned, once children are born, they'd be safe. Likewise, here in the United States and in Canada and in Europe, the globalists demand that killing children is an acceptable thing. That this evil is especially pushed by Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, with a special emphasis on murdering minority babies. You will find the vast majority of abortion clinics are in minority neighborhoods. We know that Margaret Sanger was a racist as well as eugenicist. It is not surprising that that is where Planned Parenthood prefers to have its centers, so that we can kill more black babies especially. As times passed, abortion went from being a method of last result for women who are absolutely desperate to a preferred method of birth control. Now, just take this pill or this suppository. It's simple. They lie. Abortion devastates most women who undergo it. And if you want to get an example of this, watch the movie that we showed a couple of weeks ago, Unplanned, where you see how the abortion pills actually work. But the Egyptian leaders determined, since these unwanted children are being born anyway, you midwives should kill them after they're born. In countries like China, murdering children is sanctified in law. If your child is a female, you can kill it, because everybody wants male children. In America, murdering born babies is already legal in some places. As Governor Northam publicly explained, he said that these unwanted infants can be delivered. The infant should be kept comfortable. The infant would then be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desire. Otherwise, the baby would be left to die without being fed or cared for. But they're wrapped up comfortably, so don't worry. This is demonic. As Jews, we don't talk much about the demons. It's more of a Christian thing, right? No. If there is such a thing, this is demonic. It should be illegal nationwide. And in fact, there's a good possibility that Roe v. Wade is finally going down, thanks in part to what our friend Cecily Routman of the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation just did in the Supreme Court of the United States. We're waiting until probably June or July for the ruling to come out, but I encourage all of you who believe in the sanctity of life to be in prayer. Shemot tells us, quote, "Now it took place that when the midwives feared God," when the midwives feared God, America no longer fears God. Most Americans no longer believe in God. How would you fear God if you don't believe in God? But when the midwives feared God, that He made houses for them. What does that mean? Rashi clarifies this comment for us. Now, Rashi usually prefers literal interpretation from the Bible. That's one reason why he's my favorite biblical authority to go to. But here, he digs in a little bit deeper. Rashi tells us, He made houses for them means the houses of the priesthood and the Levitic family and the royal family, which are all called houses. As it is written, He built the house of the Lord, the Beit Hamikdash, and the house of the kings, 1 Kings 9:1. The priesthood and Levitic families from Jochebed and from the royal families that came from Miriam, as is stated in Tractate Sotah 11b. Because these midwives held Hashem in awe, generations of Jews survived. Generations of Jews, because they refused to kill the babies. Likewise, when women today say, "No, I will not murder my child," no matter how difficult it might be for me, they are saving potentially generations. When fathers man up and support the mothers of their children, they too declare, "No, my child must not be murdered, no matter how difficult my life may become. It is my responsibility to care for my children." Each one of us make the decision. And who knows who these parents may be raising into adulthood. Perhaps a great tzaddik who will lead the entire world to the light of Hashem, bypassing the word Magog. Perhaps the child will become a doctor who might perhaps discover the cure for terminal diseases, cancers, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes. Perhaps the child will be a great political leader who will bring the world to peace, to love and to light. Again, maybe even avoiding the word mega. Who knows what your child might accomplish if you raise your child with love as best you can. Unless, of course, you murder her. Because abortion ends all possibilities. And yet the majority of Jews today alive support it. The majority of Jews support it. Many even actively advocate for it. Breathtakingly, this includes many rabbis. It is amazing to me, in the light of Torah, which they claim to follow, that they would support this. Our friend Rabbi Lazer Brody shares the following true story. A 16-year-old girl here in Israel, he writes, discovered that she was pregnant. Her mother went ballistic and threatened her. Either you immediately have an abortion or you get out of my house. So the young lady went up to her bedroom and soaked her bed with tears. She already felt an emotional bond with her unborn child. Remember a few weeks ago when we interviewed Tiffany Matthews and her wonderful book, When Unborn Babies Are Heard? I forgot the exact word of it now, When Unborn Babies Speak. She didn't want to terminate that pregnancy. But what was she to do? I don't know, he says, where she mustered the emotional strength from, but she packed a suitcase and she left home. Ultimately, she married her boyfriend, and together they adopted the lifestyle of Orthodox Judaism. Today, this young lady's mother has the cutest blue-eyed 2-year-old grandson with those irresistible blonde pigtails to sit on her lap. I wonder how the happy and proud grandmother would react if we reminded her that she wanted to kill that child that she now loves so much. That's why you have to think 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and more before you make such a rash and irresponsible decision as terminating a pregnancy. The Gemara says that if a religious court sentences a person to death, even once in 70 years, it is to be considered a harsh court. So what could we say about people who take the life in one fell swoop of an innocent child? So what if the life of the yet unborn child is taken? Does this mean that he doesn't have a beating heart or a thinking brain? Having been through 2 wars and more armed conflicts than I care to remember, the rabbi continues, I've seen some gruesome sights in my 3 decades of military service, and yet nothing was so shocking to me as when I saw a video of an abortion. I saw a 14-week-old infant, an embryo, panicking to try to escape the sharp metal instrument that was about to terminate its life. It was more than I could be. It's not a pretty sight, and it's something that could make a person lose sleep for a very long time to come. This poor, defenseless little embryo was actually bending and contorting itself in every conceivable way, trying to avoid the knife. It lost. I had clammy palms and cold sweat on my forehead as I watched. I don't know why, but this jolted me in a way that no combat situation of terror or aftermath of terror ever did. Some debate at what point the soul was created. At birth, at conception? No. Think back much farther than that. From Likutei Maharan, we look in volume 2 of book 1 to Rabbi Nachman's writings at lesson number 64. To begin lesson 64, the rabbi quotes from Exodus 10, 1-4. God said to Moshe, go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and his servant's heart, that I may show him signs of mine in his midst, so that he will tell your children and your grandchildren how I made a laughingstock of Egypt, and about my signs that I wrought in their midst. Then you will know that I am God. Tomorrow I will bring locusts upon your border. The Rebbe writes, God created the world out of compassion. He desired to reveal his compassion. And if there would be no world, to whom should he show compassion? Therefore, God created the entire creation from the beginning of the world of Absolute to the lowest central point of the material world in order to show his compassion. But when God wanted to create the world, there was no place to create it, since everything was infinite. Therefore, he constricted the light to the sides, and by way of this constriction, the vacated space, which we call the void, came into existence. Within the vacated space, all time and space, which are containers of creation, came into being as stated in Etz Chaim. And when God wanted to make life, he vacated a space within the mother's womb, and there he placed a child. All of life comes from the Holy One, blessed be he. Out of his great compassion, Hashem alone grants or withholds life, as stated in Deuteronomy 32:29. Sometimes we say, why did a miscarriage happen? Did God change his mind? No. Everything happens according to God's will. God alone has the authority to say, this one lives and this one does not. God alone enthuses his creation with life. And when the Holy One, blessed be he, decrees there will be life, to deny that life is to commit open rebellion against his will. Hashem, for his part, allows us to rebel for a time, but there's always a day of recognizing. There's always a day of accountability when each one of us will stand before him and be held accountable for our actions. This is among the most important lessons, I think, that we should receive from Parsha Shemot. Here, Moshe begs us, and Hashem implores us, choose life, so that you and your descendants may live, as stated in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. Choose life. We have freedom. We have choice. We can bless, or we can curse. We can give life, or we can take life. The choice is ours. But God, in his compassion, grants us life. The United States Constitution grants us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Woe to that nation that authorizes the death of the innocents. Such a nation will not be held unaccountable by God. May Hashem have mercy upon this nation, and may this nation quickly realize the errors of its ways and return to the Holy One, who alone is blessed, who alone is compassionate.